C. Interrupters.
The third item on our list of ways to use commas is to isolate stuff that's interrupting a sentence with information that isn't very important. We're going to cover 4 of these: interrupting words and expressions, nouns of direct address, appositives, and non-restrictive clauses.
The first interrupter we'll talk about is the interrupting expression, which is a word or a group of words that, well, interrupts a sentence. Let's look at a couple examples.
Sharks, interestingly, never sleep. This fact, as you probably already guessed, is why they're so mean.
The standard deviants wish to quickly dispute the notion that sharks are mean, evil, or inherently nasty creatures. Not only are sharks an integral part of oceanic ecosystems, they're also actually quite charming. It's true.
In these 2 sentences, interestingly, and as you've probably already guessed, are interrupting expressions. Now, if we remove them, we're left with sharks never sleep. This fact is why they are so mean. Notice how everything still makes sense. All the interrupting expressions are doing is enhancing the sentence's meaning. That's why we use commas before them and after them.
The second interrupting element is the noun of direct address. Nouns of direct address are words that are used to specifically address the person being spoken to, and they work the same way as interrupting expressions. Check this out.
Sharks don't have many friends, Charles, because they are so mean. Since the writer of the sentence is speaking directly to Charles, we can identify Charles as a noun of direct address. And see how we can pop the word Charles right out of that sentence and it doesn't change the meaning? We could say sharks don't have many friends because they are so mean, and the main point of the sentence hasn't changed.
We should point out that nouns of direct address don't necessarily have to come in the middle of the sentence to interrupt it. We could have written, Charles, sharks don't have many friends because they're so mean. Or, sharks don't have many friends because they're so mean, Charles. Where we put a noun of direct address doesn't matter, just as long as we separate it from the rest of the sentence with commas.
So far, so good. Now, let's talk about the third kind of interrupter, our friend, the appositive phrase. An appositive is a word or phrase that restates or elaborates on another noun in the sentence. Let's look at an example.
The pineapple, my favorite prickly fruit, does not look like a pine cone or an apple.
In this sentence, we've taken the noun pineapple and used an entire phrase, my favorite prickly fruit, to elaborate on it. That makes my favorite prickly fruit an appositive phrase, since it's just renaming pineapple a different way.
Again, because we can remove an appositive phrase without changing the meaning of the sentence, we surround it by commas.
Our appositive phrase is my favorite prickly fruit. If we pop that out of our sentence, we get the pineapple does not look like a pine cone or an apple. No harm done. Since the appositive phrase isn't essential, we use commas.
Now for our fourth interrupter, the non-restrictive clause. But before we get down and dirty, we have to cover some background information.
Remember, in our discussion of introductory clauses, we defined a dependent clause as a group of words that has both a subject and a predicate but cannot stand alone. Dependent clauses are a great way to elaborate on a noun in a sentence, and words like who, which, and that usually tell you that somewhere a dependent clause is elaborating on a noun. When dependent clauses are used this way, they can be divided into 2 categories, restrictive and non-restrictive.
Restrictive clauses are used when the noun that's being referred to needs the clause in order to make its meaning clear. We also use restrictive clauses to specify exactly which noun we're talking about. What we have here is a classic case of it's easier to show you than tell you, so here you go.
This is the same monkey that bit my ear.
Here we have an independent clause. This is the same monkey. And by spotting the word that, we know to look for a dependent clause. There it is, that bit my ear. Notice that our independent clause, although a complete sentence, doesn't really sound right by itself. It leaves the nature of the monkey a little ambiguous. Which monkey are we talking about here? Heck, we might even let the little monster sit on our shoulder. Fortunately, we have the dependent clause, that bit my ear, to clarify exactly which monkey we're talking about. When a dependent clause is vital to identifying a specific noun, we call it a restrictive clause.
Since restrictive clauses are an essential part of the sentence, we do not use a comma when we're dealing with them. That's why in our sentence, "This is the same monkey that bit my ear," we don't use a comma.
On the other hand, a non-restrictive clause is a dependent clause that elaborates on a noun in a sentence, but isn't crucial to understanding what's going on. In other words, you could get rid of a non-restrictive clause completely without changing the basic point of the sentence.
I smell a comma.
You bet. When we use a non-restrictive clause like this, we do use commas to set it apart from the rest of the sentence. Suppose we write,
The monkey, which I have forgiven for the ear-butting incident, is now a gentle friend.
The word which tells us we have a dependent clause, which I have forgiven for the ear-biting incident. Stuck in the middle of the independent clause, the monkey is now a gentle friend. But check this out. It can be removed without damaging the main point, which is the current status of the relationship the monkey and I now share. And if our dependent clause is not essential to our sentence, it's non-restrictive, and it's why we've used commas. Non-restrictive, comma.
Non-restrictive comma.
non-restrictive comma.
Non-restrictive.
Comma.
Okay. Now suppose we had two monkeys, one that bit us in the ear and one that didn't. Now we would write, "The monkey which bit me in the ear is now a gentle friend." Now the dependent clause is restrictive because it's distinguishing between the two monkeys. If we try to remove it, you won't know which monkey I'm talking about, this one or this one. Since the dependent clause is now essential to understand our sentence, we say it's a restrictive clause. And if the clause is restrictive, we don't use a comma.
Look at the two ways we can write the sentence. The monkey which bit my ear is now a gentle friend. First with the commas, then without the commas. In the first one, with a non-restrictive clause, there's only one monkey, and we're giving the reader a little information that we can pop out of the sentence without changing its meaning. But in the second one, the clause is restrictive. Since now there's more than one monkey, it's telling us which one is now a gentle friend, the one that bit us. If we try to remove it from the sentence now, we don't know which monkey we're talking about. See how the two sentences are saying different things? Behold the power of the comma.
Here's a helpful hint. We told you about 3 words that usually signal one of these clauses: who, which, and that. While who and which can lead into both restrictive and non-restrictive clauses, that clauses are always restrictive and therefore should never use a comma.
That wraps up commas and sentence interrupters. We have
Interrupting expressions.
Nouns
of direct address.
A
positive phrases.
And
non-restrictive clauses.
Would you stop
interrupting me?
Stop it!
I'm serious!
Stop it!
We don't want to give you the impression that commas are only good for separating parts of a sentence. Commas can also bring sentences together to form bigger, more beautiful compound sentences, to set words on pedestals, to prevent misreadings. Oh, comma, you're not just a form of punctuation, you're a symbol of style.